Okay, what I think is a supremely fascinating topic this week. I hope you share the same thought, but I think it's a very provocative and alien way of thinking. So there's no convincing here. There's going to be a lot of suggesting, and the suggestion is that you are not your brain. You have a brain, but you are not your brain. Well, could you elaborate, Greg, please, and kind of flesh this out? What are you trying to say? Well, what I am saying is that there's really a very, very strong differential dichotomy between two worldviews that are available. This split is so significant that it might be the most significant split that's available for humans. It's the fork in the road for humans. And one way of thinking is the modern scientific approach, which is that brains produce consciousness. The interaction of chemicals and electricity produces consciousness inside of our brain. Ask 99% of neuroscientists or neuroanatomists or scientists in general, and they would, of course, agree with this. So your brain makes consciousness. It makes you, this odd delusion, if you will, that you have running inside of you that says, I am, and has all these experiences, is the production of goo inside of your brain. Your brain makes consciousness in the way that your liver produces bile. So, of course, this is the material take on reality, and it has utterly and completely swept over the minds of men for 300 to 400 years now. For prior to this, there was not this notion. This notion was that we were energetic, vibrational, spiritual, divine beings, and we had bodies, but we weren't the production of our bodies. But then that all got swept away in the scientific revolution and the enlightenment. And now, of course, modern science says that our experience and our consciousness is made inside of our brain. Now, I'm here to tell you that that is the worst, most insidious, most damaging way of thinking about ourselves that humans perhaps have ever come up with. See, because in critical thinking, there's a huge difference between causation and correlation, causation and correlate. So to think that the brain causes consciousness when what it does is correlate with consciousness is as big and fundamental a category error as a human being can make. And it gives us really an incredibly limited view of who we are. What I'm going to suggest all week long is that your brain does not produce consciousness. It receives or filters or tunes in consciousness. This is the key. Your brain is a filter. It's a receiver, very much like a stereo receiver. When you go into Costco and you see all the television sets lined up, 50 of them, all different shapes and sizes, there's about 60% playing the Travel Channel with shiny tropical fish, and then there's the sports. And then some TVs are kind of weird. They're just playing some channel, but do we in any way think that those TV sets are producing the picture that they're displaying? Of course not. We know that they're taking an infinite potential signal, and based on what they're tuned into, they're playing their individual picture. The individual pictures can appear exactly the same if the bulk of the TV sets are tuned into a particular channel. But should one of those TV sets be dropped or broken, we don't think that the signal has died. Imagine all the TV sets that have been thrown away since TV sets were invented, lying in landfills, broken and destroyed. Is the signal destroyed? Of course not. Think of all the dead bodies lying in cemeteries. Is their signal, is their animation destroyed? Of course not. We are filters of consciousness. And this shift of how we think about ourselves is the most radical and revolutionary way of thinking about ourselves because, well, for one primary reason, it's true. It's the truth of who we are. It's false, no matter, you can have 100 scientists sit in front of you and say how it is that your brain produces your consciousness, and every one of them would be wrong. This is not to say that they're bad or evil or malicious people. They're just hypnotized by a particular worldview that tells them that's mixing up correlation with causation. Now, when you remember that you are a filter, this means that you have a brain, that you're not your brain. And the filter of your brain, which is designed to take an infinite resource, God consciousness, if you will, and refine it down to a manageable trickle so that we don't lose our minds. If we had all of consciousness inside of our brain at once, we wouldn't be able to live or survive. So all this week, I'm going to talk about this radical fork in the road that maybe the collective doesn't believe, but you as an individual can begin to contemplate, investigate, bat around inside of your mind, and the radical explanation and all the answers that come to you and all the hope and encouragement and brilliance and amazement that comes from remembering that you are a filter or a tuner of consciousness, and there's an infinite spectrum that you can tune into. There's hell down here, there's heaven up here, but whatever it is, whatever our current filtration or tuning is, it can change, and it can literally change overnight when we get good at it. That's enough for today. Bat it around, begin to think about it, that you have a brain and that you're not your brain. See you tomorrow.